Hello and welcome to the Beth Manuel Virtual Kollel. My name is Aaron, and we will be studying the Parsha today. We'll be studying Parshat Noach, which comes from Genesis chapter 6. It actually starts in verse 9 and tells the story about Noah building the ark and so on. So let's take a look at my screen here. I'll share the screen with you so that you can follow along in Hebrew. I'm using the website Sefaria. And as you can see, I'm in Genesis, which in Hebrew is Bereshit. And we'll be looking at chapter 6, Vav, and verse 9, which is down here, which is Tet. So this is the verse we're looking at. I'll read it to you first, and then we'll break it down. Ele toldot Noach. Noach, ish tzaddik, tamim, haya bedorotav, et ha'elohim, hithalech, Noach. Okay, so there's some interesting words in here. Starting off in the beginning, ele, that's what you call the plural demonstrative pronoun. That's basically it's the word these. And in Hebrew, we don't use a word for is or are or am with that present tense to be. That just is implied. So this ends up meaning these are. The next word is very interesting. The word is toldot. And as you can hear, it sounds like a feminine plural, ot. And yes, it is actually. In fact, if it were singular, it would be toleda, but there are no examples of that. It's just one of those words that's always plural. So that's why we're using these with it. Okay. Now, what are toldot? Well, it's related to the word for to give birth, yalad, or a child is a yeled, right? So it comes from that same verbal root. This is a noun, though, so it's something that's birthed out. It's like something that proceeds forth. So it's like a person's enduring legacy. It's the thing that comes after a person that they're remembered for, that proceeds forth from that thing. So it's with people, often it's their children, and so you'll often see it translated generations. However, it doesn't really necessarily mean that. In last week's Parsha, the word was used to describe the story of the earth being created, and so it's a versatile word. But just think of it as like that story of what comes next. It's the enduring legacy of something. So, and then the next word is Noach, and this is the name of Noah. And so these two words, toldot and Noach, are in a noun construct form. So you've got this noun, and then you've got this proper noun. And so when you have them connecting like that, it's implied that there's an of in between. So the toldot of Noach. So these are the toldot of Noach. Now, I can't even think of a really good translation. I've never been satisfied with any translation of this word toldot. It's one of those words that just doesn't really exist in English. But here's the story of Noach. It could be a way to put it. So then, and now we're beginning a new phrase. Noach. There you see the two words in a row. However, they're really separated by a pause. You can tell that by the cantillation marks up here. So Noach, ish tzaddik tamim. So let's find out what this is. And ish, as we've talked about other times, ish is the word for man. So it typically describes a male adult. So it's not mankind. It's an adult male, human, and distinguished from animals, distinguished from angels, and it's often talking about an important man. but it can also be any man, and it also is a word that can mean husband. So in this case, though, we're just describing him as a man. It's a good name for a man. Tzaddik. Tzaddik we will usually translate as righteous. The root means to be correct or to be right. So it's an adjective. So he's a righteous man. So he does what is right. You can scrutinize his deeds and find that he has done right. This word tamim this is also very interesting. Tamim is the word that in Leviticus it uses to describe sacrifices that are unblemished. So it means unblemished, without any lack, without anything missing, without anything broken. Tamim just means whole, unblemished. Wholesome would be another way that it could be translated. So so ish tzaddik, a righteous man, wholesome or without blemish, haya bidorotav. So haya is the past tense for to be. It means he was, haya. So there's actually a pause in between these two words. So ish tzaddik, tamim haya. So a righteous man, wholesome or unblemished he was, bidorotav. Okay, so this is a little bit of a complex word. The root is dor. Dor means generation. Generation. So the plural of dor is dorot. So that's where we get dorot here, generations. And then this av on the end, it looks like it says ive, but that's just it's always pronounced as av. The yod ends up being silent. This ending, this av ending, means his, and so it's a possessive ending that gets added onto a plural word, and dorot is plural. So dorotav means his generations. And now this prefix in the beginning here, b, in this case means something to the effect of in. It's flexible, it can mean lots of different things, but here we're saying in his generations. Or maybe we could say, well, okay, so this, of course, raises a question, and this is a question that the sages always deal with. What does it mean to say that he was blameless or spotless in his generations? Does that mean that only when you're comparing it to his generation that he's considered blameless? Or is it that mean that he's blameless even in his generation, which was a very bad generation? So there's room for interpretation there, and I'm not going to try to pin down which is the right one. But basically, we're saying that he's a righteous man, period, and then he's wholesome or blameless. He was in his generations. So he was righteous in his generation, or he was blameless in his generations. Okay. Next, we have this phrase, Eta Elohim hitalech Noach. Okay, I've told you before about this word et. However, it's not what I've mentioned before. So usually et is the sign of the definite direct object. And it's translated in English using word order. In this case, that's not what it is. This is another word. Oh, it's right down here in this list. It ends up meaning with, near, together with, right? So you can see these two words are homonyms. They look identical, but they mean two different things. How do I know that? Well, in this, that it's the second one in this case, not the first one, because it doesn't make sense. It wouldn't. What you need to do if you want to have this direct object is you need to have a verb, and what's called a transitive verb, which means a verb that has an object. And so you'd say like to bite. To bite what? To bite your food, right? It has an object to it. There's no verb here, and well, I guess there's a verb right here. This would be the verb hitalech. That means to walk around. So halach is just to walk, but then when it's in this form called hitpael, to walk about, to walk around, it's just sort of this back and forth kind of ongoing thing. And that's just what the heat pa'el form typically has. And so when I say the heat pa'el form, it's a type of verb form, and you can hear the similarity between the name heat pa'el and heat halech. Basically, this pa'el gets replaced with the verbal root, in this case, halech. So heat palel, heat halech. And so a heat palel verb is usually a verb that just sort of is either reflexive, that you're doing it to yourself, or you're doing it to another person, or you're doing it back and forth, or you kind of ongoing doing it. And that's what we're doing here. You know, you wouldn't, that verb doesn't have a direct object like to bite something would have. So so this at here doesn't mean the direct object. It just means with or together with, you know, near. So now we get to understand this phrase, with ha Elohim, God, hithalech, he walked, Noach. So Noach walked. He's the subject of the sentence. Noach walked with God. Great. Now we've got the basic meaning of this first one. These are the toldot of Noach. Noach is a righteous man. He was wholesome in his generation, or blameless in his generation, and Noach walked with God. Great. Verse 10. Vayoled Noach shlosha vanim, et Shem, et Ham, ve'et Yafet. Okay, so Vayoled, this is related to the same word, toldot. So remember I said Yalad means to give birth, and in this case, this is actually the Hefil form. So a man doesn't give birth to a child. A man may cause a child to be born, however, and so you might translate this when it's in this Hefil form, to father, right, or to beget, which is not a word that people use often in English today, but it works well as a translation for Yoled. So this is in the conversive vav form. So it looks like it says he will give birth, and he will give birth, but what happens is often you'll have this vai in the beginning, which has the functional result of reversing the tense. So that's very, very common in narratives, where it starts with this, it reverses the tense, and which gives it this sort of a narrative flowing feel of the text. So by Yoled, he gave birth. Now he didn't give birth, he fathered Noach. So Noach fathered. The word order doesn't determine the subject here. The subject is Noach, and he fathered Shlosha vanim. So Shlosha means three. It's the masculine form of the number three. The feminine form is Shalosh, but the masculine form is Shlosha. And this word vanim is the same as banim. It's just the dagesh drops out when it's next to a word that ends with a vowel. So it's just more smooth to say shlosha vanim rather than shlosha banim. So that's what happens. Sort of like when you have a or an in English. So the word is banim. It means sons, or it can mean children. It's the plural of ben. So ben, plural banim, and in this case vanim. So that could mean lots of different things. It could mean grandchildren, descendants. It could be members of something. It could be people of a nation. You know, there's all kinds of things that it could be. In this case, it's the most literal, basic, simple form, sons. So Noach fathered three sons. Et Shem. So remember how this word et meant with. In this case, we know to give birth, you do give birth to an object here, and that's what this is indicating, the direct object of this verb, he gave birth, or to father, I should say, right? So it's going to tell us who he gave, who he fathered. Shem is the name of one of the sons then. Ham, so it repeats this et, meaning there's another object in that same verb. Ham is the second one. And then the third one, the et, and then the object marker, Yafet. So Shem, Ham, and Yafet, those end up in English as Shem, Ham, and Japheth. and which is interesting because okay, so Shem, I should mention their meaning of their names. Shem means name. I think Noach was being clever by naming his son name. Well, what's his name? Name. So that turns out to be what it is. Ham, that ends up meaning warm. It's I'm not sure how he got that name. It would be interesting to find that out. Um, so Ham is warm. It can mean hot. And then the next name, it's actually Yefet. Yefet would be the normal way to say it, but because it's at the end of this sentence, it gets changed to Yafet. So, and that just happens. You'll find in biblical Hebrew at the end of a phrase or a sentence, certain words will just the vowels will shift slightly, especially if they're the kind that go eh. Like maybe you've heard of the phrase Borei Pri Hagafen, who creates the fruit of the vine. Normally the word for vine is Geffen, but because that's at the end of the phrase, it becomes Gafen. The same thing happened here. Normally his name is Yefet, but because he's listed last in this sentence, it becomes Yafet. So that's how. Now his name means something to the effect of, well, okay, it's very interesting. I'm seeing here it says opened. I think that from what I've heard before, it's more related to the word Yafeh, which means beautiful, beauty. That seems to be more in line with what his name would probably mean. So there he is. We've got name, warm, and beauty, the three sons of Noach, and we haven't really gotten into the drama of the story yet, but that's how it goes. Perhaps in our next lesson. Thanks for joining me, and God willing, we'll get into this again later in the week.